Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. I am a student of English. This is my story. I want to tell you about my life in London and share with you all I have learned about English. You can read my story and learn English with me. I will tell you every part of my journey and every lesson I learned along the way. It was a beautiful summer day when I first began my journey. I was on a train traveling to London. I looked out the window and saw bright fields and blue skies. On the train, I sat with two ladies. I did not know them, but I could tell they were from another country by the way they talked. I could not understand all they said, but I knew they spoke English very well. I wanted to speak English too, even though I was just a beginner. I knew only a few words and spoke very slowly. Still, I decided to try. I spoke in my basic English, and the ladies understood me. They smiled and listened as I told them that I wanted to learn English. They were from England and were traveling home from a conference. We talked for about 10 minutes. When my stop came, I thanked them, and they gave me their address and phone number. They said I could visit them if I wanted. That day, my journey to learn English truly began. After the train ride, I went home and made a decision. I decided to work hard on my English. I started to translate texts and watch films in English. I worked on my English for 2 hours almost every day. Slowly, my ability to speak grew, and in 6 months, I could speak quite well. But I wanted to know more. I wanted to become better still, so I decided to go to London to study English in a school there. I chose a school that I thought would be good for me. I looked forward to my very first lesson. On that Monday, I met my teacher and my classmates. My teacher was a young lady and very kind. She asked everyone to introduce themselves and say where they were from. Then our lesson began. Our teacher asked us how we had studied English before and what we thought was the best way to learn. I told her that I liked to translate songs and other texts, but I did not know what the best method was. Our teacher smiled and explained that she would teach us a very effective method. She said that we would not have to study by reading textbooks and memorizing rules. Instead, we would use English by speaking and listening. She told us that language is for communication. Languages help us to share ideas and understand each other. When you learn a new language, the best way to learn is to use it every day. She said that when we were children, we learned our native language by speaking a lot. As adults, we must also speak a lot if we want to learn English. Many students study grammar and new words for hours and then do not use English in conversation. Our teacher explained that while it is important to learn new words and grammar, we must use them in our conversations. I liked her idea very much. The next day, on Tuesday, I went back to school and learned about how to learn new words. One of my classmates asked, "What is the best way to learn new words?" Our teacher said that reading is the best way to learn new words. When you read, you learn new words twice as fast as when you do not. She told us that it is good to read for at least 30 minutes every day. She explained that the book or text you choose should be interesting to you. If you enjoy what you read, you will learn more. The text can be a fun story or a book that gives you useful information for your job or hobby. It is very important that you enjoy the text because reading should be fun, not a chore. When you read and find a word you do not know, you should look it up in a dictionary and then keep reading. You do not need to write every new word down or make a long list. You only need to focus on understanding the meaning in the text. Each time you see a new word, you learn a little bit more about it. Reading also teaches you how words go together in sentences. It shows you how to connect words in the right order. This method of learning new words is very effective. I started reading, and I could feel my vocabulary growing day by day. On Wednesday at school, one of the students from South Korea asked a question about pronunciation. He said he had a big problem with his pronunciation. He knew his accent was not good, and that made him feel shy. Our teacher listened carefully and then explained that many students have this problem. She said that when we speak English, we use the muscles in our mouth in a different way than we do in our native language. Because of this, our pronunciation does not sound like that of a native speaker. She told us that there is a technique called shadowing that can help. Shadowing means that you listen carefully to a sentence and then immediately repeat what you heard. Our teacher explained that when children learn their first language, they copy what their parents say over and over. You can do the same when learning English. I tried shadowing with a video that was not too fast. I paused and repeated each sentence. At first, it was hard because my mouth hurt and my tongue did not move as I wished. But over time, I began to copy the sounds better. After school, I even asked the school receptionist if there were any sports activities. I wanted to play sports in England because I love football. The receptionist told me that there was a football team and a table tennis team. I joined the football team and met players from many countries. There were players from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I was very happy to make new friends and to have a chance to speak English with them during training. On Thursday, a new student named Monica from Italy joined our class. At the beginning of the lesson, our teacher asked Monica how she had learned English so well. Monica answered that she had learned English at home. She said she had used the techniques our teacher had taught last summer. She explained that she did a lot of reading, shadowing, and something called thinking aloud. I did not know what thinking aloud was, so I asked our teacher about it. Our teacher explained that thinking aloud means that you speak your thoughts in English, even if no one else is listening. You say out loud what you are thinking. She said that this is a very simple and powerful way to improve your speaking. At first, it may seem strange or even a little crazy, but it works very well. Monica told us that when she first started thinking aloud, she would say very simple sentences like, "I can speak English." "It is good that I can speak English. I want to be better. I need to practice every day." These simple words helped her learn how to express her ideas clearly in English. After that, she met a man from Australia. Even though she was still a beginner, she was able to speak with him without having to translate in her head. This gave her great confidence, and she used the technique every day. I decided to use thinking aloud too, because I wanted to become better at speaking English. On Friday, my school day was different. After class, I went to the cafe where my job training was scheduled to start. I was nervous because I had never worked in a cafe before. When I arrived, I saw a modern cafe that sold coffee, tea, chocolate, cakes, and sandwiches. My boss was only 25 years old, but she had worked there for over 2 years. She was very experienced and showed me how to prepare coffee, wash the dishes, and deal with customers. I listened carefully, but I only remembered a few things. Soon, she let me try the work on my own and corrected me when I made a mistake. I learned fast because I was eager to do well. After my first day at work, I felt very tired, but also very happy. I was glad that I had a job where I could practice my English with real customers. The next Monday, back at school, our teacher asked us to talk about what we did during the weekend. I told my classmates that I had practiced shadowing on Saturday and Sunday. One of my classmates noticed that my voice sounded much better than it had before. She said, "Your pronunciation is very good now." I smiled and thanked her. Our teacher then asked if anyone else had tried shadowing. A few students, including the student from South Korea, raised their hands. One student mentioned that her mouth hurt after 5 minutes of shadowing. Our teacher explained that if your mouth hurts, it means you are using your muscles in a new way. She said, "It is like going to the gym. Your muscles will hurt at first, but with practice, they will get stronger." I agreed. I remembered how hard it was on Saturday when I first started shadowing, but by Sunday evening it became easier. Then our teacher asked us to take a test to see how many English words we knew. I learned that I knew about 2,100 words. Most of my classmates knew between 2,000 and 2,200 words. Only Monica and the student from South Korea knew about 2,500 words. This test made me happy and motivated me to learn even more. On Tuesday, I went back to school. One of my classmates asked, "I want to practice speaking, but I am afraid of making mistakes. I do not want to look stupid. What should I do?" Our teacher told us that making mistakes is a normal part of learning. She said that when we learn our native language, we also make mistakes. She told us not to worry if we make mistakes in English. Instead, we should focus on expressing our ideas. She explained that even 2-year-old children make many mistakes when they talk, but they keep talking and soon become very good. I felt relieved because I did not want to be perfect right away. I decided that I would keep speaking, even if I made mistakes. Our teacher reminded us that every mistake is a chance to learn and that we should never stop trying. On Wednesday, during class, one student asked, "I read a text and look up a new word, but when I see it again, I do not remember it. How can I remember new words better?" Our teacher said that it is normal not to remember a new word the first time you see it. She explained that when you learn a word, it goes through several phases. First, you see the word, and you do not know it. Then you look it up in the dictionary. The next time you see the word, you may remember a little bit, but not completely. After you see it several times, you begin to understand it. Eventually, the word becomes part of your memory, and you can use it when you speak. She said that some words, especially verbs, may take 10 or 15 encounters before you remember them well. I realized that I should not feel bad if I have to look up a word many times. This idea helped me to be more patient with myself. After school that day, I went to football training with my team. Our coach said that we had a match on Saturday against another school team from Cambridge. I felt excited and nervous at the same time. I thought about how learning English could also help me talk to my teammates and even the fans. When you want to remember a word, you need to see or hear it many times. It is like planting a seed that grows slowly over time. The next day, a student asked how to improve listening skills. Our teacher explained that good listening is very important for communication. She said that when you listen carefully, you can understand how sentences are built and how words are pronounced. There are many materials available on the internet to help with listening. Our teacher told us that when we listen to an audio, we should know at least 95% of the words. If there are many new words, it is good to read the text first so you know the meaning. She said that there are two types of listening materials. One is audio recordings, and the other is films or videos. When listening to audio, focus on understanding the information. When watching films, start with subtitles so you know the story and then try without them. She advised us to listen for at least 30 minutes every day. I felt inspired by her advice and decided to practice listening more each day. On Friday, our teacher asked us to share our reasons for learning English. I remembered the time when I first became interested in English. I told the class that in high school I did not like English. I struggled with the language. I tried to learn words and grammar, but it was very hard. I thought English was not for me. Then something changed. I loved music, and when I was 20, I started listening to the Beatles. I wanted to understand their songs, so I began to translate them. Slowly, I understood more and more. One day, on a train, I met two English ladies. We had a simple conversation, and they made me believe that I could learn English. From that moment on, I worked on my English every day. Eventually, I decided to go to England to study English further. Our teacher told us that having motivation is very important. She said that when you love something connected to English, whether it is music, history, or culture, it becomes easier to learn. I agreed with her and felt my motivation grow. The next lesson was about learning vocabulary. One student asked, "You told us that it is good to know 3,000 words. How do I learn these words?" Our teacher explained that you might be able to learn basic words from a list, but this method only works well up to about 1,000 words. Beyond that, you need to learn words in context by reading stories or interesting texts. When you learn a word as part of a sentence, you also learn how it connects to other words. Our teacher said that reading a book like Robinson Crusoe in simple English is a very good way to learn. She said that every important word will come back into your life many times until you truly learn it. I listened carefully and realized that I needed to read many interesting texts to build my vocabulary naturally. On Tuesday, something interesting happened at work. I was at the cafe when two customers came in. One of them spoke in a way that I could not understand. I thought he might be asking for something we did not have, so I called my boss. My boss talked to the man and soon discovered that he was from Scotland. I felt a bit embarrassed because I had not understood him. Later that day, I told my teacher about what happened. She explained that different accents can be hard to understand. She said that if you are used to one type of English, like the one spoken in London, you may have trouble with accents from other parts of the world. She advised me to listen to Scottish films or comedies to train my ears. I thanked her and promised to practice more with different accents. The following day, our teacher talked about what we can do at our current level of English. She explained that there are different levels of vocabulary. At the 1,000-word level, you can talk about very basic things. Your sentences are short and simple. When you reach 2,000 words, you can speak about many topics from your life, such as your family, hobbies, job, and travel. But to have deeper conversations, you need to know about 3,000 words. Our teacher said that while knowing more words helps, the most important thing is to use the words you know. I listened carefully and thought about my progress. I remembered that I was happy when I could speak simple sentences at work with the two ladies who did not know much English. They felt comfortable, and my boss even changed her speech to be simpler for them. I realized that no matter your level, it is important to communicate clearly and simply. On Thursday, a classmate asked, "What to do when you feel very shy?" She said, "I am very shy when I speak English. I sometimes feel stupid when I do not know a word." Our teacher replied that feeling shy is normal when learning a new language. She explained that everyone makes mistakes. When we first learn to speak, we must not worry about being perfect. Even children make mistakes when they learn to talk, and they keep trying until they become good. Our teacher said that when you do not know a word, you can describe it in simple words so that others understand. This technique helps you keep the conversation going. I felt that her advice was very kind and practical. I decided then that I would try to be braver, even if I sometimes feel shy. I would speak up and not worry too much about mistakes, because every error helps me learn. A few days later, on Friday, a new student named Sophia joined our class. She was from Argentina. At the beginning of the lesson, Sophia said that she thought she did not have a talent for learning languages because her sister learned English very fast. Our teacher then asked all the students to raise their hands if they believed they were talented. I looked around and saw that no one put their hand up. Our teacher then explained that every person has a talent for learning languages because we all learned our native language as children. Even if some people seem super talented, that does not mean you are not talented. Our teacher told us not to compare ourselves with those who learn very fast. She said that everyone is good at something. I felt encouraged and began to believe in my own talent, not only in sports like football and tennis, but also in learning English. Later that day, we had a school party. I was happy to go because I wanted to see my new friend Sophia. I talked to many people, and the party was full of laughter and music. It made me feel that using English can be fun and that even simple sentences can make you sound fluent. On the next Monday, our teacher asked us about the school party. A classmate said it was wonderful. Some of the boys from our football team, who were from Brazil, spoke with very simple words and short sentences, yet they were very fluent. Their language was not perfect, but they communicated well and made everyone laugh with their jokes. Our teacher explained that speaking fluently is not about knowing many words or having perfect grammar. It is about speaking without long pauses and using the words you have learned. She compared speaking to playing a musical instrument. Just as a violin player practices every day to get the right notes, we must practice speaking every day to build the connection between our brain and our mouth. I listened and understood that to speak fluently, I needed to practice for at least 30 minutes a day. I decided to make an effort to speak, even if my sentences were short. Later that week, one of my classmates asked how to choose a good school when returning home. She said, "I am going home next week, and I want to continue learning English. How do I know if the school is good?" Our teacher answered that if you read, listen, and speak a lot, you can learn English naturally. But if you want to speed up your progress, a good teacher can help. She suggested that after a few lessons, you should take a test to see how many new words you have learned. If you are happy with your progress, you can continue with private lessons. I felt grateful for the advice because I knew that learning English must be fun and that I should enjoy every lesson. On the following Wednesday, Monica asked our teacher a very interesting question. She asked, "How did you learn so much about teaching languages? Where did you get all this information?" Our teacher smiled and said that she learned mostly through experience. She has been teaching for over 7 years. She told us that she studies online and tests new ideas in her classes. She also told us about a special place she calls her magic park. When she has a difficult question, she goes to this park, sits on a bench, relaxes, and asks the universe for an answer. Sometimes the answer comes quickly, and sometimes it comes the next day. She said that the park is not far from the school and that many people go there to relax. I found it very interesting that our teacher could ask the universe for answers. I thought that maybe one day I, too, could visit a magic park and find answers to my questions. The next day, one of my classmates asked for a simple summary of all we had learned. Our teacher said, "If you want to speak English well, you must do 3 things: read, listen, and speak. You must do these activities every day for at least 90 minutes. That is, 30 minutes for reading, 30 minutes for listening, and 30 minutes for speaking." She explained that you should read for new information or enjoy a good story, not just study English. Then you must listen to audio or watch videos that interest you. Finally, you must speak, either with real people or by practicing out loud to yourself. She said that if you do all 3 activities, you will improve very quickly. I listened and knew that this was the simple truth of learning English. On my last day at school, I felt both happy and sad. I was happy because I had learned so much. I was sad because I had to say goodbye to my wonderful teacher and my new friends. I gave everyone my email address and told them that they could contact me. I said goodbye to everyone with a smile, even though I felt a little sad inside. I knew that I could not stay in school forever. I had to continue learning on my own. My teacher said, "Now it is up to you. Use all the tools you have learned." I promised myself that I would keep using English every day. A year after my last day at school, I looked back on my journey. I worked hard every day. I used the techniques my teacher taught me. I read interesting books, listened to many English audios, and spoke every day. I even used shadowing and thinking aloud. Now, I know 4,000 words in English. I feel much more confident when I speak. I even have a new job. I teach English to beginners who know only 500 words. I remember how hard it was when I started. I am glad that I had a great teacher in London. I want to pass on all the things I learned to my students. I want them to succeed and feel happy with English. I teach them to speak by reading, listening, and speaking every day. I show them how to use techniques like shadowing and thinking aloud. I also tell them that making mistakes is normal. I tell them that every mistake is a step toward better English. I have learned that every part of this journey matters. I remember the day on the train when I first tried to speak to two kind ladies. I remember my first day at school when my teacher told us to speak and not just study. I remember the challenge of learning new words by reading interesting texts. I remember the time when I practiced shadowing and felt my mouth hurt because I was using my muscles in a new way. I remember the school days when I learned that mistakes are good and that shyness should not stop me from speaking. I remember when I met new friends from many countries and how that made my English better. I remember the day I went to the job center and learned that I could work as a waiter to practice my English. I remember the lesson on pronunciation and how I learned to copy native speakers with shadowing. I remember the lesson about handling mistakes and how our teacher told us that even native speakers make mistakes. I remember learning about how to remember words through many encounters and reading texts that were interesting and full of new ideas. I learned that reading is the best way to learn new words. I learned that listening carefully can help me understand how sentences work. I learned that speaking every day, even if just for a short time, builds my confidence. I learned that every little effort, every 5 minutes of practice, makes a difference. I learned that it is important to use English in every part of my day. I learned that technology, like language apps, can help me improve my pronunciation and fluency. I learned that joining online groups or finding a language partner makes the learning process more fun. I learned that when I feel shy, I should not hide, but instead use that feeling to practice even more. I learned that everyone has a talent for learning languages, even if it does not come as fast as it does for some people. I learned that comparing myself to super talented people only makes me feel bad. I learned to appreciate my own progress and to celebrate every small victory. One day I went to the cafe where I worked and met customers who spoke with different accents. I once did not understand a man from Scotland. My boss helped him, and I learned that accents can be different. My teacher told me that I needed to listen more to different types of English. I then started to watch films with Scottish accents and listened carefully. Slowly, I began to understand better. Later, I served two ladies from Japan at the cafe. I spoke in simple, short sentences, and they understood me. They told me that they liked our cafe because people spoke simple English there. This made me feel very proud and happy. I remember a day when a student in class asked what to do if you want to speak fluently. Our teacher said that speaking fluently is not about speed or perfect grammar. It is about speaking without long pauses and using the words you know confidently. She said that speaking is like playing a musical instrument. You must train your brain and your mouth together. If you practice for at least 30 minutes a day, your speech will become smoother and more natural. I started to do this every day, even if it was just talking to myself while I walked or cooked. Another important lesson was about choosing the right school. A student once asked how to decide if a school is good. Our teacher said that if you read, listen, and speak a lot. This is where your text cuts off. Would you like me to continue or adjust it further? You will learn naturally. However, if you want to speed up your learning, having a good teacher and the right environment is very helpful. After 5 lessons, you can test your progress by counting how many new words you have learned. I learned that I should choose a school where I enjoy every lesson. When I enjoy learning, I make more progress. There was also a lesson about what to do when you need help. Monica once asked our teacher where she learned all the information about teaching languages. Our teacher said that she learned from her own experience over many years. She also said that she looks for answers in a special place she calls her magic park. In that park, she sits on a bench, relaxes, and asks the universe for answers. Sometimes the answer comes right away, and sometimes it comes the next morning. She called it magic because it always worked for her. I found this idea very interesting and thought that one day I might visit a magic park when I have a hard question. On one of our last lessons, our teacher asked us to summarize what we had learned. She told us that to speak English well, you must do 3 things every day. Read for at least 30 minutes, listen for at least 30 minutes, and speak for at least 30 minutes. This makes a total of 90 minutes every day. Reading gives you new words and shows you how sentences work. Listening helps you understand different accents and styles. Speaking builds the connection between your mind and your mouth. Our teacher said that these simple steps are all you need. I felt that this summary was the key to everything. It was simple, clear, and made a lot of sense. On my last day at school, I said goodbye to my teacher and classmates. I gave them my email address and told them they could contact me if they needed help. I was sad to leave, but I knew that my learning would continue. I left the classroom with a promise to myself to keep using all that I had learned. 1 year later, I look back on my journey with great pride. I used English every day, just as my teacher advised. I read interesting books, listened to many podcasts, and practiced speaking all the time. I used shadowing and thinking aloud. I made mistakes, but I did not let them stop me. Now I know 4,000 words in English. My speech is more fluent and clear. I even have a new job where I teach English to beginners. My students know only about 500 words, and I help them build their skills every day. I use all the techniques I learned in London. I show them that making mistakes is normal and that every mistake is a step toward improvement. I tell them that the key to learning English is to read, listen, and speak every day. I also share with them the story of my own challenges. I tell them about the day on the train when I first tried to speak with two kind English ladies. I tell them about the lesson when I learned that reading is the best way to learn new words. I tell them about my first day in London when my teacher said that using English for communication is the best method. I share with them the time when I practiced shadowing and felt my mouth hurt because I was training my muscles in a new way. I remind them that every small effort counts, and that even if they feel shy or make mistakes, they must keep trying. I have learned that every day is a new chance. Even if today I only think in English for 5 minutes, tomorrow I can do more. I have learned that the world of English is full of opportunities. English is not just a language. It is a bridge that connects me with people from many countries. It helps me study at top universities, work in international companies, travel to new places, and even enjoy the best that the internet has to offer. English has opened my eyes to a new world. I want you to know that you too can learn English. You can start by learning simple words and speaking simple sentences. You can read a book that you enjoy. You can listen to a podcast or watch a movie in English. Remember to practice every day, even if you feel that your progress is slow. Every word you learn makes you better. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a lesson. Speak, listen, and read. Use the techniques of shadowing and thinking aloud. Listen carefully to the way native speakers talk and try to copy them. Over time, your pronunciation will improve, and you will feel more confident. Sometimes, you may face challenges. You might feel shy or worry that you do not know enough words. You might even feel that your accent is not good. But remember, many people face these same challenges. Your teacher and classmates all started at the same level. Every one of us makes mistakes when learning a new language. Even people who are very successful make mistakes sometimes. What is important is that you do not let your mistakes stop you from trying. Each time you speak, you build your confidence. Each time you read, you add new words to your memory. Each time you listen, you learn more about the way English sounds. I have many memories of my journey in London. I remember the excitement of the train ride, the nervousness of speaking to strangers, and the joy of understanding a new word after reading a good book. I remember the laughter in class when we practiced speaking, the satisfaction of a well-spoken sentence, and the warm support of my teacher. I remember my first time serving customers at the cafe, and the feeling of pride when a customer smiled at my English. Now, after all these lessons, I look back with pride. I used every method and every technique my teacher taught me. I practiced every day. I read interesting books, like Robinson Crusoe in simple English. I listened to audiobooks, podcasts, and films. I spoke with my classmates, at my job, and even to myself. I used shadowing to copy native speakers and thinking aloud to express my ideas. I joined online groups and used language apps. I made many mistakes, but I learned from them and grew stronger in my English skills. 1 year later, I know 4,000 words in English. I feel confident when I speak. I now have a job teaching English to beginners. I use all the techniques I learned in London. I teach my students that they do not need to be perfect. I tell them to read for 30 minutes every day. Listen to something interesting for 30 minutes. and speak for 30 minutes. I explain that these 3 activities together will make them fluent over time. I show them that every mistake is a chance to learn and that practice makes perfect. I share with them stories of my own struggles and successes so they feel encouraged. I remember many moments from my journey. I remember the day I first spoke to those kind English ladies on the train. I remember how nervous I felt, but also how happy I was when they understood me. I remember my first day in London when my teacher told us to use English for communication, not just for studying grammar. I remember the feeling in my heart when I realized that reading a good book could teach me not just new words, but also how to build a sentence. I remember the challenge of shadowing and how my mouth hurt at first, but then it got easier with practice. I remember the excitement of making new friends on the football team and how our conversations, even though simple, boosted my confidence. I remember the times I worked at the cafe speaking with customers and feeling proud when they smiled at my English. I remember the day when I was tested on how many words I knew, and how that test pushed me to learn more. I remember the lessons on handling mistakes and the kind words my teacher shared about how even famous people make errors when they speak. I remember the lesson on remembering words, where my teacher explained that each new word takes many encounters to fully stick in your memory. I remember the advice on listening, where my teacher said that you should listen for 30 minutes every day and be happy with every little part you understand. I remember sharing my own story of how I began to love English, from not liking it in high school to finally understanding the Beatles and meeting 2 English ladies on a train. I remember learning that motivation is the key to success in learning a language. I remember the discussions about vocabulary, how lists can help only until a point, and how the best learning happens when words appear in a story. I remember the time when I did not understand a customer from Scotland, and how my teacher told me to train my ears by watching films with Scottish accents. I remember learning about different levels of vocabulary and what you can do with 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 words. I remember the lesson about shyness and how our teacher told us not to fear mistakes, but to use them as steps to grow. I remember learning that if you do not know a word, you can always describe it in simple words, just like you would explain something in your own language. I remember the day when a new student from Argentina, Sophia, joined our class and how she doubted her talent until our teacher reminded us that we all have the ability to learn a language because we already learned our native tongue as children. I remember the party where I danced with Sophia and saw how even students with very basic English could have fun and communicate effectively. I remember our teacher's explanation that speaking fluently means speaking without long pauses, and that it comes from practice every day. I remember learning about how to choose a good school by testing your progress after a few lessons and seeing if you enjoy your learning. I remember the time when Monica asked our teacher where she learned all these things, and our teacher told us about her magic park, a quiet place where she sat and asked the universe for answers. I remember the final summary lesson, where our teacher told us that to learn English well, you must spend at least 90 minutes every day using English in 3 ways: reading, listening, and speaking. Every minute spent with English adds up and makes you better. Now, after many months of hard work, I have grown a lot. I am no longer the shy beginner I once was. I can speak with confidence. I understand more than I ever did before. I even feel comfortable in noisy cafes and busy streets. I have met people from many different countries and made friends who speak many different languages. I have learned that English is not just a language. It is a tool that connects me with the world. I can now travel with ease because I know how to ask for directions, order a meal, and book a hotel room in English. I have discovered that English opens many doors in education and work. I can read research papers, watch international news, and participate in online communities. I feel that my life has changed for the better because I embraced the challenge and practiced every day. I also learned that learning English is a journey that never truly ends. Even though I now know many words and speak fluently, I still learn something new every day. Sometimes I find a word that I never knew before. Sometimes I hear a new phrase in a film or podcast that makes me smile. Every day is an opportunity to grow and improve. I have learned to enjoy every step of the journey, even the difficult parts. I have learned that it is okay to feel shy or make mistakes because each mistake is a chance to learn. I have learned that the key to success is to keep trying and not to give up. Now I work as an English teacher. I teach beginners who know very few words. I tell them that when they speak English, they should not worry about making mistakes. I remind them of the many lessons I learned in London. I explain that they must read interesting texts, listen to native speakers, and speak every day. I show them how to use shadowing and thinking aloud. I tell them that every word they learn brings them closer to fluency. I share with them stories of my own struggles, like the day I first spoke to those kind ladies on the train, the day I learned to read without fear, the day I practiced shadowing until my mouth hurt, and the day I finally felt confident enough to join a conversation in a cafe. I remind them that even when they do not understand everything, they must keep trying because every little step makes a big difference. Every time I see a beginner smile when they use a new word or complete a simple sentence, I feel proud. I see my students build their vocabulary slowly and steadily. I see them practice speaking with each other in our small classes, and I see their confidence grow day by day. I tell them that learning English is like planting a seed. At first, the seed is small and fragile, but with daily care, it grows into a strong tree. I remind them that if they practice reading for 30 minutes, listening for 30 minutes, and speaking for 30 minutes every day, they will soon see big improvements. I also encourage my students to use technology. I tell them to use language apps that help with vocabulary and pronunciation. I show them how to record their voices and compare their speech with that of native speakers. I remind them that joining online groups or finding a conversation partner can make learning fun and interactive.